The Turnpike Sports Book Report is brought to you by BorgataSports.com. Your favorite casino is now your favorite sportsbook. Available anywhere in New Jersey, BorgataSports.com. Sign up at BorgataSports.com using our promo code PIKE, that's P-I-K-E. Make your first wager of $20 or more and you'll get $100 in free bets. That's $100 in free bets when your first wager on Borgata Sports is $20 or more. Get into the action with BorgataSports.com. Must be 21 years or older and in New Jersey to place a bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
And welcome to this week's edition of the Turnpike Sports Book Report, where we're going to be going through the usual suspects of our state and national sports betting reports. We've got a couple benchmarks to hit this week.
I heard some good news for New York. It's always good news.
Well,
for New York.
It's not just New York. It's there's other states in this country, and New York just seems to be the one taking a lot of the headlines every week. But we got a bunch of states reporting some benchmarks. Got a few deals to talk about. A couple involving the NFL. NFL is always in the news with some sort of deal being made. But then we've got our industry updates segment where we're going to talk about a few launches as well as even more NFL news. And then we're going to round up the show with the legislative updates where we've got some news coming out of California, Ohio. We've got a national letter to talk about regarding some offshore gaming.
A national letter, huh?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. And also even some news, if we have time, coming out of Massachusetts.
We're not going to get to that because nothing comes out of Massachusetts.
We have to give Massachusetts its due.
Fine.
They're like the little engine that could. They keep trying and trying and trying. So we'll see exactly, when we get to that segment, we'll talk about it. But as always, we're going to start off with some numbers. Well, in this week's numbers segment, we're going to start off with some national numbers before we get to the states.
Okay.
In terms of gross gaming revenue, this year, 2022, the gross gaming revenue passed the $2.5 billion mark.
Now, when you say gaming revenue, you're talking about?
Just sports betting. They call it GGR.
Oh, okay.
Yes, this is sports betting. 2022 year-to-date gross gaming revenue passed the $2.5 billion mark. Why is this significant? This is from the end of June here for regarding the overall calendar month, but states have only been reporting a few of their months at a time here. We still have Arizona yet to report a few numbers, but the nation as a whole has passed $2.5 billion in gross gaming revenue. It took 2021 to pass $2.5 billion by September.
Oh, okay.
So we're about 3 months.
We're on a
ahead
good
of time.
pace.
Yeah, we're about 3-4 months ahead of schedule.
Well, look, there's a bunch of new states this year,
exactly.
too. So, that's kind of skewing the numbers.
Well, you also got to remember there's also more books, too, opening up.
Sure.
Also, I think you got to realize Illinois dropped their in-person registration. I think just by looking at Nevada's last set of numbers, even the mobile handle in Nevada has been going up.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to see exactly, even with this dead period in the sports schedule, if you want to call it that right now, we're starting to see even more and more money coming in, and also the books making more and more money.
We always talk about mobile handle as opposed to retail sportsbook handle. There's a survey done or a study done every week in sports betting. There's one study I want to see, or one survey I want to see, and I'm very curious because I do this. Even when I'm in a retail sportsbook, I still bet on my phone. I could be sitting in a sportsbook, the teller could be in my eyesight, and I still take out my phone. Yes. I don't leave my seat, and I'm just curious how many people who are in retail sportsbooks still bet on their phone.
Probably everybody.
So I
wouldn't be surprised.
I'm just curious.
Staying on the national level, it's also the 9th consecutive month the nationwide handle passed $5 billion.
Okay.
Compared to, this is all post-PASPA, compared to the beginning of PASPA, there was no $5 billion handles in the first 39 months.
How many states were there?
Well, still, you got to look at it as a comparison, as a benchmark, where the first 39 of 48 months, there was no $5 billion handles.
You can see the growth. You can see the growth.
That's what I'm pointing out to you. Let's talk some state benchmarks. We've got New York, as always, we're going to start off with. Through the week ending June 24th, as we all know, the mobile wagering is reported week to week. The monthly one comes out at the end of at the end of every month, where they also include the retail.
Okay.
So some of the mobile is offset, but right now, at the week ending June 24th, FanDuel recorded its 24th straight week of at least $100 million handle. BetMGM cleared $750 million in total handle, and BetRivers cleared $200 million in total handle. So there are a couple benchmarks for the individual books there.
Yeah, I love what FanDuel is doing in New York. I mean,
they control the market.
Look,
right
I
now.
see all the advertising. Being in New Jersey, I see all the advertising coming out of New York. And just from my perception, it looks like FanDuel doesn't do the most, advertising or commercials that I'm seeing on TV. So I think it's impressive of the product that they're offering, that they're number one and they have the number one market share, because, look, all I'm seeing is Caesars and DraftKings and things like that, but I'm very impressed with FanDuel.
Well, again, FanDuel
says a lot about their product.
FanDuel does have the more sturdy product. Let me put it that way. It's it's also something the most user friendly in certain instances too.
Yeah.
So it's it's no wonder FanDuel, not only in New York, but FanDuel does have the best market share in the country.
Yeah.
So it shows too.
Yeah,
there's reasons why FanDuel is there.
Speaking of user-friendly, I'm dealing with I guess I'll get used to it, but I'm dealing with the two-tiered security thing.
Two-factor authentication.
Authentication for New Jersey. It's a little difficult. I mean,
I'm getting used to maneuvering on my cell phone. Using the apps.
Pre-Pass or as PASPA got taken away and New Jersey came online, a lot of these sports books that I registered with early on, I put my home phone number on it. And now, so that's a little difficult. I mean, if you have your home phone number as your registered phone number on these online sites, you can't get text. So I'm wondering, I have to get into these sites.
Yep.
But it's hard to get into these sites if you don't get a text. But
some of them are set up where you can get an email too.
Yeah, there's an app that you can use.
The authenticators.
Yeah. I'm using an app for FanDuel, but it's a little difficult if you put your home phone number on it when you first signed up for these things.
They tried to make it as easy as possible with this transition, but again, it's going to cause some people headaches.
Well, it's something to get used to.
Yes. So. Continuing on with the numbers, New York has become the first state to clear $300 million in tax revenue in the post-PASPA era.
Wow.
We actually talked about this a while ago, maybe 2 weeks before this. They had set the tax record of $267 million in the first 5 months of their operation, and we pointed out that New Jersey had a 13% tax rate and was not able to get to that point until is still not able to get to that point. They're only around 230 million, maybe 240 million now. Okay. Pennsylvania had the record, had $253 million. They had set that record a while ago, and now New York has blown right by it.
Yeah.
So New York is the powerhouse right now. Going around the country, we've got a couple other benchmarks to hit. We've got Nevada's all-time mobile handle clearing $10 billion. Colorado became the 7th state to surpass $7 billion in all-time handle since their launch. They joined New Jersey, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Indiana, and New York. Also, Colorado's mobile handle passed $7 billion because basically every month we see their reports. They're about 97 to 99% of the total handle is mobile in that state anyway.
How'd table tennis do this month?
Table tennis was 7th.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I always ask about table tennis.
0.8%.
I'm fascinated with the table tennis market.
They were 0.8% of the total handle.
Okay.
Going over to a couple other states, we have Tennessee. Tennessee reported its 9th straight month with at least $250 million in handle and of at least $20 million in gross gaming revenue.
Okay.
Rhode Island became the 9th state to pass the $50 million in-state tax receipt mark.
Okay. Look at Rhode Island.
Little Rhode Island chugging along there.
Yeah.
Overall mobile handle in Rhode Island also passed $500 million.
Wow, okay.
And South Dakota passed the $3 million handle for 2022. And you got to remember, South Dakota is only in the casinos itself, the mobile too.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So congratulations to all the different
That's pretty good if you're only in the casinos.
I know.
I mean, that's
it's
pretty
a young
good
industry too.
If you're in one building, you know, that's pretty impressive.
People seem to love the sports betting. I know they're trying to expand it, so we'll see exactly where and when that happens. Probably way down the road here. Mm-hmm. So let's move on to a few of the deals that have happened over the last week. Few deals to talk about that have happened over the past week. Couple of them involving the NFL, and I guess by extension the NFLPA as well. We've got two deals to talk about there. FanDuel has expanded its deal with the NFL to cover Canada now.
All right.
It now will be able to use NFL logos and marks in the Canadian market to create NFL-themed free-to-play games and run NFL-themed campaigns in Canada.
All right.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, one of the games they were talking about, one of the prizes would be trips to NFL games.
Oh, that's cool. And
since there are no NFL games in Canada, that's a good trip. If you think about it, they got to go down into the United States.
Sure.
You're going to see FanDuel advertising everywhere on NFL digital properties, especially NFL.com.
All right.
So that was kind of a interesting extension because it now puts FanDuel across North America.
Great.
Another big deal that happened was the NFL Players Association making a data deal.
Okay.
And this is kind of interesting in terms of the company they're working with is let me get the name right. It is Sports Data Labs.
All right.
They're going to be going through the data of the former NFL players to actually help with monetizing this data, the stats.
Oh.
So, in this world of not just sports betting, but NFTs.
I was going to say, do I smell NFTs coming?
You smell a lot of things.
Oh, look at that.
You've got fantasy.
I have the whiff of NFTs here.
Yes.
All right.
But yeah, it's for sports betting purposes, fantasy sports, NFTs, Web3 applications, crypto, what have you. The deal is going to be going through all the different stats by these former players, and they're going to be working with the Players Association, the union, to actually help monetize these for their player membership.
Well, that's great because I interviewed a couple sites, like a couple fantasy sites that involve former players, the historical players.
The legacy fantasy sports. They do historical players as well as current players.
It could be very good for them.
It's a brand new area of fantasy sports if you think about it, but also it's going to be kind of interesting to see where they go with the NFT side of things. I'm always curious because there's always much more you can do with an NFT than people really think about.
Sure,
they're not just artwork. We also had PointsBet opening their first office in their first European headquarters in Dublin, Ireland.
Oh, okay.
We also have BetMGM announcing a deal with the Tom Joyner Foundation to do an executive series at the historical black colleges and universities nationwide. Also, we had a deal with Bluebet, which is another Australian sportsbook. They did a market access deal, a 10-year market access deal with Caesars.
Okay.
Actually, Horseshoe Hammond, if you want to do the exact
name. Now, Bluebet, B-L-U-E?
Yes.
Bet? Okay.
Yes. It's really Caesars, Horseshoe Hammond, but it's for the Indiana marketplace. And they will be doing their online sportsbook, ClutchBet.
ClutchBet?
Yep.
All right.
And it'll be the fourth state for ClutchBet when they get approval for that.
Okay.
Let's see. One last note about Bluebet. They're actually they anticipate a launch in Colorado and Louisiana during the second quarter of next year.
All right.
Indiana during the second half of next year. But their first bet, even though this deal is for Indiana, their first bet they're anticipating will be in Iowa sometime this year.
All right.
So they are expanding slowly but surely across the country with these access deals.
Hell, hey, get to New Jersey.
Yes.
Can't wait to try out.
Especially with a name like ClutchBet.
ClutchBet.
We've got a couple launches to talk about. First off, we have the very first retail book at an MLS, Major League Soccer stadium.
I saw this in the news. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's being called one of the more unique stadium sportsbooks because it's in a downtown area in the region, DC. The DC United Major League Soccer team. It's adjacent to Audi Field. Audi Field, however you want to say
Audi
it.
Field.
Audi Field. It's a downtown venue that it's highly trafficked is the phrasing they were using. So there may be some non-soccer betting going on throughout the year.
I would guess so. But no, this really caught my attention because I rarely see, U.S. soccer and
Major League
Soccer and sports betting in the same story. So I'm glad I'm seeing it.
Well,
I see European soccer all the time with sports betting, not U.S. soccer.
Well, a couple of the stories I was reading about this, reporting on this, of Major League Soccer's 28 teams, only half operate in sports betting states.
Okay.
So that's why you're not seeing too many. As a matter of fact, I saw one of them actually made a sports betting deal where there is no sports betting, the Houston Dynamo.
Okay, yeah.
They did it with PointsBet.
Interesting.
And there's no sports betting in Texas. There's no betting in Texas.
There's no casinos in Texas.
No, there's not. All they have is a lottery.
Well, they have poker rooms.
Private poker rooms. Charity poker
rooms.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if they're charity or...
Well, that's what they fall under.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So, they have poker rooms. But it's interesting. When we had another story about betting in Houston, and I think it was the Astros or something like that, but they also Houston Astros did a deal with a Louisiana sports betting operator,
I think it was Caesars. Or something.
Yeah,
it was one of the big four.
So
might have been BetMGM. One of those.
I don't know. No,
but it was for the Louisiana market, basically.
But when you hear Houston, you rarely think of Louisiana, but they must have a big fan base in Louisiana. I'm curious to see if anything like.
Well, you got to remember when Louisiana first launched mobile sports betting, it was almost like half of Eastern Texas went over to Louisiana to bet. Yeah. So, it's No, Louisiana has a big Texas component to it in terms of betting,
especially Houston.
I think,
and Mattress Max, doesn't he always go to Louisiana?
How often do you see a team thinking outside the box by going to the next state over?
Yeah, no, good for them.
So,
they know where their fan base
exactly,
is. So
exactly. Good. Plus, also they get the geo-comply data.
Yeah,
they see where all that's going, and if they did more stuff in Louisiana, that's even more profit for them in terms of those promos that they're running. But again, we've got. First one in a retail book in a downtown location, which is highly trafficked.
We're back to DC right now.
We're back to DC.
Okay.
We're still talking about DC. Right. I was trying to get back on track here a little bit, very subtly.
Yeah.
But again, going over to Vegas, we have Harrah's Las Vegas reopened their Caesars Sportsbook. They had a ribbon cutting with Baltimore Ravens Hall of Famer Jonathan Ogden.
Oh, okay, cool.
That is now the 24th jurisdiction for Caesars Sportsbook in the United States.
Right.
18 are just mobile, though.
Okay.
Caesars now operates the most retail sportsbook in the United States. Mm-hmm. Going over to some other NFL news. And we've already done 2 NFL stories already.
Okay.
One with the FanDuel expanding into Canada and also the NFLPA deal. The NFL has announced the appointment of David Highhill.
Yes.
As the NFL's new VP and general manager of sports betting. That is their very first position like that in the league.
Yeah, I was waiting for something like this to happen. A couple of years ago, I interviewed the VP of gaming for NASCAR, and I also did the VP of gaming for the PGA Tour. And I asked them, do you think other sports are going to be getting into this? And absolutely, they have to. I mean, it's part of sports now. I'm waiting for the MLB to do something.
Well, Highhill will be directly responsible for the NFL as part of regulated sports gambling, in the market in the United States. He actually has been with the league for 10 years. They just made him into this position.
I think it's a necessary position to have. I think all sports should have that position.
He is going to be in charge of, or his responsibilities include, making sure the NFL protects its integrity by guaranteeing fair games that are free of manipulation.
Okay.
That's a big way of saying they don't want any cheating.
Everything's on the up and up.
Or suspicious betting. Ensuring that gambling-related harm is addressed.
Okay.
So that's the responsible gambling programming that they have.
Sure.
And that the league is harnessing greater value out of its intellectual property and data. Okay. Now, I don't see how
licensing deals.
Yeah, the NFL's been doing this for years. They probably are the most innovative in terms of licensing their IP. The data, they've done the deal with Genius Sports. I wonder if they're not satisfied with it, maybe. Or are there other avenues they could be doing, or is there other areas they can be using this data for?
Well, look, I mean, that's part of the press release. I'm sure that's going to be. They're always going to say, "Look, we're going to maximize the intellectual property of the league."
Well, they have to.
Sure,
they have to. And as the league continues to grow, I'm wondering when the NFLPA starts saying, "Hey, we want some of the sports betting money."
Who knows?
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see exactly where these go, especially with the NFLPA doing a data deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, it'll be kind of interesting to see if there's going to be some kind of coexistence in terms of data deals, because if the NFLPA doesn't make the deal like with Genius Sports for data, does the NFL come in and say something?
If there's money in it, they'll make the deals.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's just the licensing landscape, especially for the data, is going to continually change.
Sure.
And there'll be different markets as they come along.
It's such a crucial component of sports betting, so that's the key to sports betting is the data.
Yes. We've got in North Carolina the let me get the name of the Catawba Nation-owned Two Kings Casino announced plans to open a sports book before the start of football season.
Okay.
That'll be the third retail location in the state. And why am I bringing up North Carolina?
Because the legislators made a mess
Screwed
of
up on the mobile sports betting.
Made a mess of everything.
As a matter of fact, I just saw a report on Friday afternoon that the legislature in North Carolina adjourned without even discussing any sports betting bills.
Yeah.
They set up a whole bunch of new dates to come back and talk. I think the earliest re-adjournment or reassembling of the legislature is going to be July 26th.
Okay. All right.
No word on what the schedule of bills they're going to be talking about. They haven't mentioned anything about sports betting. And they've got, a couple other ones set up, but I think the hope is at some point, I don't know if July 26th they're going to have sports betting, but the hope is sometime this year before they have the final session in December that they're going to have a sports betting bill hammered out.
Okay. Well, look, what these states do by not allowing mobile sports betting is they're helping out the neighboring states that do have sports betting. So they're getting
they have sports betting. They have sports betting.
The mobile. I said mobile sports betting. I want to make clear mobile sports betting, but all you're doing is benefiting your neighboring states that have mobile sports betting.
Yes.
Okay, that's all you're doing.
But they will now have 3 retail locations by the time football starts up.
Okay,
maybe more. There may be 1 or 2 others that may be looking at doing it, but right now they've only got 2 up and running. There's going to be a 3rd by football season. Century Casinos announced that Bet365's new launch date in Colorado is going to be September 1st and not during the summer.
Okay.
So they may get to the start of football season. This has already been delayed once or twice already.
Okay. All right.
So right now the date is September 1st. That's 7 days before the first football game, regular season game.
I think it'd be great for them if they stuck with that date.
If they can.
They can. I mean, if they can, just by all means stick with it. Get the entire football season in.
But Bet365 got their license for Colorado in December 2021.
Okay.
They still have not launched yet.
Okay.
So they keep delaying it and seeing exactly what's going to happen there. But again, we'll see exactly if they hang on to that September 1st date. That's always the big day for customer acquisition, football season. Going over to Arizona, we have our last entry for the day here. Prescott Valley's Arizona Downs Racetrack opened a Caesar Sportsbook retail location on the property.
Great.
It's actually not really a sports book like we're used to seeing.
What are we talking about?
Kiosks and betting windows.
Oh, well, kind of a sports book.
Yeah, one or two
if they have windows,
Yeah. Well, they have other betting amenities, too.
Sure.
But again, it's mostly kiosks. And it's in the racetrack's simulcast room. They're I don't want to call it an OTB, but
I always like
simulcast
I always
rooms.
like it when there's a sports book and a race book in close proximity of each other. Borgata has a great one. Borgata has the only race book in Atlantic City, and it's right across the hallway from the sports book, which is great.
The one question parks in Philly, Ben Salem.
Yeah.
Is their race book in with the sports book, or are they separate?
I think it's separate. I think you still
Yeah.
they have Parks
Wait,
Casino,
that's right. They have the other building.
Parks Casino has two separate buildings.
That's
One
right,
building is right next to their racetrack, so I think that's where you can place your bet for horse racing.
Right.
But I think you have to go to the main building to do their
sports betting.
Sports betting, yeah.
Going to finish up with some legislative updates. As I teased at the beginning of the show, we have a national letter going out to Merrick Garland.
Okay.
A bipartisan group of 28 representatives from 13 states has called upon the Department of Justice to increase scrutiny and prosecution of illegal offshore sportsbooks.
Good.
I don't know what this letter will accomplish. It just puts, maybe a little bit bigger spotlight on it.
Yeah, I think so.
According to the quote everyone used from this letter, the offshore sportsbooks expose our constituents to financial and cyber vulnerabilities. Mm-hmm. They do not have the protocols to address money laundering, sports integrity, or age restrictions, and undermine states' efforts to capture much-needed tax revenue through legal sports betting channels.
Well, the one thing I'd be worried about is offshore accounts. I don't use them. I never even tried them, and I'm not going to because, one of the big things about sports betting is you want to get your money back. You want to you want to be able to withdraw your cash. You want to get winnings and stuff like that. And, it's a lot safer if you use the U.S. regulated licensed sports books here.
It's also easier to go after them if they don't pay you.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
You need some kind of remedy if something happens to you or your money or something like that. So
and the tax revenue statement has been argued all the way through this. So American Gaming Association voiced their support for the letter. As a matter of fact, it echoes the letter the AGA sent a few months earlier to Merrick Garland. So that was back in April.
Okay.
So now we've gotten a whole bunch of legislators jumping on the bandwagon to do their own letter, and we'll see where that goes. California, where we've been talking the sports betting ballots. We've got one retail, one mobile.
Okay.
The mobile betting ballot initiative will now be on the ballot.
So they got
the signatures.
So they have two questions to answer with regard to sports betting in California. One is retail and one is mobile. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct.
Okay.
The retail one is brought forth by the tribe, the Native American tribes in the state, where they would control sports betting on a retail level. Does not mention mobile whatsoever.
Okay.
The mobile one does not mention retail whatsoever,
Okay, wow.
and it's all the big mobile sports betting operators, including Fanatics, as part of this.
Good.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious to see where Fanatics fits in all of this one. But both of them are on the course to be on the ballot.
Okay.
They got both the signatures. As a matter of fact, there was a report that one of the Native American tribes has now started putting their support behind the mobile one as well.
Okay, good.
So maybe by the time November rolls around, we may see both of these having full support from both sides. Doubt it, because I think the Native American tribes want more control over the industry in California.
Yeah.
But I think with all the sports teams and the mobile operators, I can't see California not having mobile sports betting.
Let's be honest. After New York, California is the next big story in the sports betting industry.
Yes.
I mean, if they get California, if sports betting is allowed in California, when everyone uses the term game changer a little too much, but California getting sports betting is a game changer for the sports betting industry.
And once California gets up and running, the last one to go is Texas, and I don't know if that's going to happen.
They got to get casinos first.
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, no.
I know,
Tennessee
but
doesn't.
I'm
Tennessee
just saying,
didn't. Virginia didn't.
I'm just saying, if they had casinos, it'd be, their mindset that they're not completely against gambling.
Over in Ohio now, since June 15th, they had the sports betting application window open, and every week they've been announcing who's been applying for applications. The week ending June 22nd, we had DraftKings and Jack Entertainment submitting applications. Jack did it for both properties.
Sure.
The week after that, this past week, Hall of Fame Village was among the list. They applied for both retail and online sports betting licenses. It's starting to take shape, what's going on. We're going to be starting to see a hell of a lot more applications coming in pretty soon, I would think, as you get closer to the end of the year. They're talking January 1st launch, but they still got to have everything lined up, and they got to do the testing once they get their licenses.
They have to do the soft launch.
Well, no, I'm talking even before they do the soft launch, they got to have everything tested.
Sure.
They got to have everything up and running in the right way before they do the soft launch, and then the full launch should be January 1st.
Okay.
See if they actually hit that. And last but not least, little old Massachusetts.
Okay.
Massachusetts, the sports betting bills are in committee. They're trying to go back and forth, trying to get something worked out. But the Massachusetts Gaming Commission is beginning to sketch out preliminary rules and regulations for the sports betting industry in the state.
Good.
This is going to be kind of interesting to see if they have the rules all agreed upon before they actually have the bill agreed upon. The legislative session is scheduled to end July 31st, and we don't know exactly what's going on. There's just too big a gap, I think, right now, unless something gets worked out.
Well, look,
and that's what the committee's for. I understand that, but
it's completely strange that Massachusetts doesn't have sports betting, because think of it this way. The corporate headquarters for DraftKings is Massachusetts.
Yes. Yep.
There's no sports betting there, which is odd.
And they've
odd.
They've got the two full resort casinos, MGM Springfield and Encore Boston. They both have quote unquote sports bars that are sports books ready to go.
And look, they have. Is it Plainville or Plain Ridge?
Plain Ridge Casino in Plainville,
which, by the way, is Penn National, which has a deal with Barstool Sports.
Right.
So I'm very curious if there would be a Barstool Sportsbook there if Massachusetts gets its act together.
Well, I'll tell you right now that the Plain Ridge Casino probably has one of the best locations inside the casino for a sportsbook.
Sure.
What was it? The Flutie Sports Bar and Grill.
I don't know if that's still up and running.
I don't know. It was closed for a while.
Yeah.
And but if they ever got a sports betting, that'd be the perfect sportsbook to go to.
And it's only a couple of miles from Foxborough, which is where
several hundred miles,
which is where the Patriots play.
Yeah,
Gillette Stadium, I should say. Gillette Stadium.
Yes, that's a better way of saying it. But yeah, but again, that's it for this week's Turnpike Sports Book Report. Please keep the press releases coming in. info@turnpikesportsradio.com. If you've been watching us on TV, the ticker has had even more stories rolling by underneath us as we're talking. And as soon as this is published and released, you will see a full print version of the Turnpike Sports Book Report, which has even more stories that we didn't have a chance to talk about in print form on the blog, turnpikesports.us. Click on the blog button, and you'll see the print version of the book report about a half hour after the show is released.
And that'll do it for us this week. We'll see you next time on the Turnpike.